By the way, I looked at the time on this, not a phone call. I'm not that rude, but it's my watch. One of my sons taught me that. Why do you need a watch? You've got it here. Let me ask you, finally, what is the future you would like to see for Catholic schools? You have done work, consulting work, as well as organizing work, in trying to put together programs that would save these schools. Rice and a lot of other Catholic schools are extremely impoverished. They work on fumes. The president of Rice, we didn't talk about this, but his job was simply to fundraise, so far as I could tell. He was out all the time raising money while Orlando was running the school, pretty much. What is your worst case scenario, and what is your best case scenario, and how do you get to the best case scenario for these schools so they can continue to provide this kind of service?
Well, the worst case scenario, of course, is that most of them close,
and they are closing.
They are closing, and
a year or something. I forget.
Well, it was 162 last year. It's been 200 a year since 1965 or something like that. But last year, although it was the same number from the year before, 60%, their loss of students was 60% more. Plus, a lot of schools, like something like 43% are 199 or less, and then so a lot of schools, and 80-some% are under 250, or I forget exactly the numbers. But the point is that they've gone from a healthy enrollment to precarious enrollment in vast numbers, at a time when we're going through this economic crisis. There's issues with donations, plus donor fatigue, and then loss of jobs that are for the most part not coming back. So the capacity to pay tuition has declined, and all these sorts of issues. So there could be massive closings in the near future.
You're in favor of vouchers, you know?
Yes and no. It's as an emergency measure. Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of universal vouchers, and there's nothing about publicly funded education that means it has to be publicly run. If the government would just give you a voucher and walk away, great. The only problem is, taking their money means taking their
rules.
Yeah. What is it? The expression? Shekels come with shackles.
Yes, right.
Right. So, and I've seen that happen in Canada. So. I think any government solution has to be handled very carefully, and should always be looked on as temporary.
What's a permanent solution?
A permanent solution is, I think, a number of things that would revitalize what Catholic schools do, and I think there's ways of sort of upping the academic quality and Catholic identity at these schools, which I think is important. You have to create a new narrative and revitalize what the vision of these schools is. And we should be building schools. I mean, the Catholic population has gone up by 40% as we've lost half the schools. There's an enormous Hispanic population. Few whose children are going to Catholic school. And we really need to be building schools and retooling them for that population. I think the way to go about it is, and there are a number of ways of doing it, all of which can be done. One is to challenge Catholics as a whole to support the schools. Catholics used to give the same as Protestants to the church, and the schools were the biggest expense. Now we give half as much, 3 times, 4 times, depending how you calculate. And very small amounts of money add up. There are, about 15 million registered Catholic families. So if you start a few bucks a week, dedicated to the schools.
15 million where?
15 million
okay.
Registered Catholic families.
Okay.
I think it's around somewhere in there. But the point is, so the average family gives $300 a year to the school. Well, most families could double that. A lot of families could. I mean, you could double or at least increase by a few $billion a year the amount of money that Catholics could donate if it were a focused national campaign for the schools. You could raise hundreds of millions, and you could start upping that with a very, very focused campaign showing the benefits. There's no better bang for the buck philanthropically than Catholic school. Changes people's lives. It's what got us all here. I mean, who is more dysfunctional than the Irish? Well, it's true.
I'll take your word for it, Patrick. I'm not going there.
So, I mean, that's one approach. There are ways of restructuring parish finances. There are all kinds of ways to access different financial structures and sort of reinvent Catholic parishes.
You have been talking to a number of organizations that are interested in this remediation, in helping to make this possible. People with skills at organization and fundraising, that kind of thing. Have you not?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you hopeful?
Cautiously hopeful. I recently got together some folks who had put together a big fund to help, and that had dissipated, and I think they're re-energized again. So, yeah, I think there are solutions. There are many solutions that could be employed. I think the financial resources are there. In the Catholic world, there's a tremendous amount of money, and time and time again, I've had people from the outside, at the Department of Education or city councilors say, "Why can't you get your act together?" They just don't understand why. What we need is leadership. We need initiative. Universities like Boston College to do what it's doing for K-12. We need more of that, and we need people to step forward and champion programs. We need leadership from the top, if that will ever come. If not, then if the bishop, there is great leadership among some bishops. We need, as a whole, would be certainly needed. But if not, then other organizations, I think, need to become more bold. I mean, the whole thing was built not with money, but the fierce passion and commitment of religious orders and ordinary Catholics who did not have money, but they had the belief and the endowment of the will to do it. And I think we need to go back to that sort of attitude and stabilize things financially, and then appeal to philanthropists for projects on that basis, not to pay off deficits, but
to build.
To build,
Right.
and there's all kinds of equity in the Catholic world to leverage for that.